welcome to Discovering Creativity. My name is Erica Murphy, and I am here with an amazing woman who's here to talk a little bit about using creativity in the workplace as well as doing workshops. We're excited. So, Linda, if you don't mind, will you introduce yourself and your company?
Hi, thanks, Erica. My name is Linda Naiman. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada, and my company is called Creativity at Work. So I specialize in helping leaders and teams develop their skills in leadership, creativity, collaboration, and innovation. And my mission in life is to liberate creativity and make life and work a work of art. And so that's how I like to live, and that's how I like to help people live and work. And so the way I liberate creativity, help people liberate their creativity, is through learning about creative process and also arts-based learning. So I use the arts as a catalyst to help people learn more about their natural inherent creativity and then apply that to leadership and innovation.
That's incredibly fascinating. I love that. As an executive and someone who works primarily, I was first a vocalist and artist. I definitely resonate with that idea. I know it's so needed in the workplace. And so if you don't mind, I'd love to spend some time just picking your brain. And I have a couple questions. So as we were doing some research, we were really curious on how do you use research methods to help clients discover market insights that can drive innovation? You ended on innovation. I'd like to touch on that first.
Yeah, doing research is not a big part of my work. It's more around skills building and awareness and developing competencies. But having said that, I do incorporate design thinking in my work, and I train people how to be design thinkers, and doing research is part of that. And so I encourage people to use empathy-based processes from design thinking to learn about research, and then I encourage people to also get out of their silos and find out what their own researchers are doing in their companies. What are they learning from market research? What do they learn? What's the data telling them? How can you apply creativity to learn more about what the data is giving you? And so when I do use research techniques, I am using empathy-based processes. And then I have people interview each other. So when we're working in teams, and especially like if the teams come from different parts of the organization, then that's an opportunity for people to meet up with each other from other teams and then to practice being a customer for each other. And so they can get tremendous insights from that and also get to learn and get to know each other better.
I can see how that connection is so important, especially when pairing data and research with our hope to drive that innovation and to have that innovative entrepreneurial spirit. I could see how that would resonate with companies for sure.
Yeah. So I did some work once with it was a group of financial analysts that work for a major investment company that sells mutual funds and things like that. And so their job was to track what's going on in the market and create reports for the executive team about what they should pay attention to. And so the team lead brought me in because he wanted them to learn how to connect the dots. How do you connect the dots between disparate data to make sense of something or even to come up with new ideas? And so he asked me to bring in the arts for them to learn that.
That is beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, that was a way to open up their minds, open up their senses.
I find as a musician, I find that there are often times as I'm in that sandbox playing, it does open up that creative thinking. In fact, it brings me, I'm very curious in the training of creative thinkers. So the idea of bringing in music, bringing in other tactile things, art, really getting them to play. So can you tell us maybe another success story about how you helped a client become more successful through, that creative thinking training?
Sure. Well, one example is using the arts as a catalyst for, you could call it aesthetic inquiry or dialogue, reflective dialogue. And so I had a group of people come together, and they were consultants who formed a consortium, and they weren't sure if they wanted to stay together or not. So they brought me in to facilitate a day of inquiry using the arts. And so what I had them do was paint conversations, or even in the beginning, paint how they see their world. And so one woman drew a picture of a deep chasm. And then at the bottom of the chasm, the chasm was mostly purple with jagged rocks and everything. And at the bottom, just to the right, was a little red dot. And she said, when we shared what people had painted and they were telling their stories, well, she told her story, and she was talking about how overwhelmed she felt. And she felt like this consortium felt like she was in a deep pit with it, and there was just so much to do, and it was so overwhelming. And somebody said, yeah, but your red dot is, it's just coming up the other side of the chasm. And through the conversation, first of all, she voiced what had previously been undiscussable. Mm-hmm. So, and she voiced what other people were feeling to some degree. So it opened up the door for heartfelt, honest conversations about things that were hard to discuss. Because when you are talking about an image, your attention goes to the image. So yes, we know you're talking about yourself, but we're talking about the image. And it just makes it, and to be able to visualize what somebody is going through, there's the jagged marks, there's the color, there's emotion in there. There's layers of learning that can come out of a visual image that you wouldn't get from just having a normal conversation. You wouldn't get that from being linear and logical and analytical. So that conversation created a breakthrough for the group. And they decided to stay together. So that was quite transformational.
Yeah, just getting a different perspective while you watch someone having an authentic experience. And then it also, I could see it helping someone who may be more introverted come out and share that. That is amazing. That's very exciting. I would love to do that in my company. What a gift. I definitely think we'll share more of your work. So that would mean that you would be doing this in a group setting, right? So in a group setting, one of the questions that I had, and especially in your opinion, what are some keys to successfully facilitating groups through this creative experience? I can imagine different personalities. That can be a very delicate process to sometimes tread lightly, especially depending on what types of executives, what types of work, product, who the ultimate customer is, how you're guiding that. So in your opinion, what are some key contributors to a successful facilitation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when people are engaged in an art process, or they're about to be, often they feel quite afraid. And the higher up they are in the hierarchy, being a president or a CEO, often they're even more nervous than everybody else, because you are being vulnerable when you share your writing, your painting, your music. And so what I do is I create a safe environment characterized by freedom and trust. So I use theater improv rules, and I invite people to be foolish, because theater improv isn't about performance, it's about expression. And the work I do in the arts is not about performance. It's not about teaching people to be artists. It's about expression. And then if we're using music, then it's about listening, and listening deeply and sharing what you are experiencing as a human. So the arts awakens us to our humanity. And so do you know about theater improv?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. So it's, anytime you get an offer for an idea, you build on it, you don't crush it. And so we start by playing the yes and game, to listen to each other and build on each other's ideas rather than shooting them down. So that builds trust. And I also say no sarcasm, because some cultures are their culture is sarcastic. So that might be okay in some instances, but it's not okay when we're doing something where people are going to be feeling vulnerable. And then I also ask people to be willing to experiment and take conceptual risks, and don't worry about being wrong, because this is about experimentation. It's about expression. And then I ask them sometimes, depending on the group, are there any other rules that you would like to add? Because what this does is it creates rules of engagement. So with one group I worked with, I said, okay, no sarcasm. And then at the end of the second day, when it was over, I said, okay, if you want, you can be sarcastic again. And it was like they'd been holding their breath for 2 days. I felt this collective sigh of relief. Oh my goodness. Oh, good. We can be sarcastic with each other.
That's so fun. It sounds like you really cultivate trust. And
yeah, that's really, really important. And also create a space where everybody can be heard, seen, heard, and acknowledged. Everybody needs a voice. The greatest gift we can give each other is to really listen to each other.
So I'm curious, when we're looking at creating a safe place, building trust, can you tell me a little bit more about active listening, or how you see that in your group settings, or how you see maybe listening grow?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the situation. But when somebody is sharing their idea, well, then they can say, well, what I like about that idea is build on the idea. So acknowledge, oh yeah, I like that. I like that part of the idea. That's interesting. Or, or if you're looking at a work of art, or it's not necessarily a work of art in the workshop, but if you're looking at somebody's painting, to be curious, why did you choose that color? Or what does that line say to you? What does this image mean to you? Things like that.
Yeah. I definitely like the idea of, instead of having to take the entire, absorb or accept everything, to have an agreement or the respect to accept one portion or part of the thing, which not only builds some affirmation into the person that's sharing. So I could see that, especially in my team, growing trust. It also gives a bit of a pause to shutting down the idea before it's really been given some wings to even develop, right?
Yeah.
That's
So
go ahead.
Yeah, another improv game is to come up with terrible ideas.
I like that.
And yeah, so that's a good way to get people out of fear. It's like, okay, give me some bad ideas. Oh, I can do that. And the bad ideas usually make people laugh. Laughter activates endorphins in our brain, and endorphins allow for creativity to come through. So humor is good as well. Yeah.
That's very cool. And especially if you've already set the tone that sarcasm is going to be put to the side, that sarcasm can often come along with humor, even in the best way. But I could see how that really does lighten the space and give it, give a lot of freedom. I think you said that in the beginning.
Yeah.
I like that all of these ideas are really making a free space to create. And that's so important in this type of training. Well,
yeah. And also, just as a counter to the yes and, just so people can get an experience of yes, but, then we play the yes, but game. And so
tell me more about that.
I ask people to, okay, come up with an idea for a holiday or for a corporate retreat or for a party, something like that. And every time you make an offer to each other, the other person says yes, but, and says what's wrong with it and why you can't do it. And then I ask people, what is your experience with that? Did the energy go up or down? You know, when I ask that when people are playing yes and, most people say the energy goes up. You know, it's fun, it's energizing, it's generative. But with yes, but, people realize you keep saying yes, but there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, there's often fear on the other side of the but. And that, especially, I can see that in our own work. But what might happen but this?
Yeah, like, you know, then you just run out of ideas, or then it's like you feel defeated because like no idea is being accepted. However, I do say in the trainings, there is a time for yes, but, and that is when you're evaluating ideas. So the key is train yourself to generate ideas and then evaluate ideas later. Don't do it both at the same time, because you'll kill creativity doing that. And it just frustrates everybody. And it also takes a really long time because you're just going to be debating every single idea as it comes through. And that's why people hate brainstorming.
Yeah, I can see that. Brainstorming in the wrong way without good without rules around it, it can lead to discouragement or demotivation. So yeah. I can see that. Well, I'm really
definitely needs rules.
Amen. So I was curious earlier, you were talking about how you use the arts. So I'm curious, in your opinion, how can companies use the arts to help them innovate?
Well, there's a couple of ways. You can actually use gallery art, museum quality art. Some corporations have fantastic museum quality art collections. And so when I worked with the financial company, they have so many pieces in their collection. They have their own curator as an employee, and they loan their collection out to museums. So we went on a gallery walk, and what I did, which was down their corridors, and what I did was I gave them a challenge. They had a complex challenge to work out, and this was after doing a number of creative problem-solving exercises beforehand. But I asked them to look at the art and analyze it, and then ask, discern what message does this artwork have for you? Let's say this art is an oracle and it has a message for you. What is that message regarding your challenge? So that causes people to look, connect the dots, come up with new ideas, and using visual information. And so then, so then you can also use images as catalysts to share what you have in mind, or even to think in terms of metaphors. So metaphors are another great tool for communication, and for also because and for explaining things, because metaphors are a short story.
Tell me more.
Now I'm trying to think what. I am trying to think about a good metaphor now. Now I've gone blank. It'll come to me.
I believe it will. And that actually brings me to the concept, and from the research I did on your company, having an action-based approach, like an action-based initiative to really go through this. So as you're teaching people not only to be creative, to be aware visually of the experience, how are you seeing that propel them into action? So self-awareness, taking everything in, getting connected through artistic work, and then taking action on that. So I'm really interested in how you see that happen from the visual acceptance. I'm in the experience, I'm part of the experience, and then taking that step into creative thinking into the world. Do you see, because action is important, right? Innovation is amazing if you have the idea, but how do you see it transfer into action?
Yeah. Okay, well, let me go back to that example of this group was called the Ginger Group that I worked with. So the cliff, the chasm, that was a metaphor. And that's how she used the metaphor of the chasm as the story of her life. And then, but it gives somebody else, when she talks about the chasm, even to say, I feel like I'm at the bottom of a chasm, which is metaphorical thinking. Everybody, that's a short story. Everybody who hears that has their own interpretation of what that means. So it has meaning for everybody. And so this catalyzed a conversation where everybody then started looking, they're listening to her, but they're also looking at the image, and they're gaining information from the painting, from the colors, from the shapes, and so on. And they are interpreting, they are making meaning out of that for themselves as well. And so what we had then was, what that evolved into then was dialogue. So everybody was heard, everybody had a different perspective. Plus, everybody had their own paintings. So it was like show and tell. So everybody's showing their own work. What they did after that was talk about what kind of organization they wanted to create for themselves. How did they want to work together? What they pull. The other thing that happens with working with images and when you're creating art or even interpreting art in a museum or gallery is that when you start interpreting it and expressing what it means to you, you're telling a story about it. And embedded in that story are your values. So this was a way with the Ginger Group, it was a way to surface values. So they started tracking each other's values as they were telling stories. And then and these people were not ordinary people because they were coaches and facilitators themselves. And what they started to do was they called it recontextualizing the images, what they mean, what meaning they want to affect in with their clients in their community and so on. And so they took all these pieces and recontextualized it and created a new story for themselves. And from there, they decided to stay together, and then they created a plan of action for who are they going to be, what are they going to do, what are they going to produce, what value are they going to create, things like that.
I love that. That must have been not only inspiring, but also just bringing in coaches and facilitators, helping them be aware so they can take that out and coach better. I'm actually really curious about the coaching side of your work. So how do you use your creativity in coaching sessions?
I would say that I help people tap into their wiser, all-knowing self, to come up with their answers, to connect with their creative spirit, to awaken their creativity. I help them get unstuck, unblocked. I help them, and I just recently added a new layer to my coaching. And so I am bringing mental fitness into the space and positive intelligence. So that's rooted in the work of Shirzad Chamine and his research in positive psychology and neuroscience and a whole bunch of other things. And so, yeah, a lot of creative people or entrepreneurs are, well, we all have blocks. We all have, we all have challenges. And so what I help people do is overcome that inner critic, the procrastinator, the perfectionist, that plague all of us creative people, all of us innovators. And if they're wanting to develop their creativity, then we work together to find what aspect of creativity do they want to develop, and what do they want to explore. And based on those conversations, I give them homework. And so I encourage them, I give them assignments to experiment and to grow and to push. And then we talk about that.
I love that. I think my resilient artistic spirit left when you said just how you coach and how you help them awaken that side of them. So when you talk a lot about art and a lot about that visual experience, so how has your arts expertise helped you create a niche in this creative consulting world?
I made it up.
I love it. That's the most creative thing.
It's been many years, and I was connecting the dots myself because I'm a multidisciplinary thinker. That's how I was educated in art school. So I started asking, what is the connection between art and leadership? Turned out a lot of people were asking that in the academic world. And so I started tracking what the academics were saying and what came out of their research. And and people have written about that. And so then I started to look at, I have a background in design too. So then I started looking, how do I think as an artist? How do I think as a designer? How might that help? And then, and I learned along the way. I learned about creative problem solving. I went to CIPSE. And so I'm always learning something.
That is so important.
And then I'm, tracking, what does the world need? What does the world need, and what can I offer to help, to add value? And so I started publishing, and then people started coming to me, and I attracted quite a few companies who were Fortune 500 companies and even governments. And And so if I look at what's the common denominator amongst all of them, I would say they're all at the top of their game. Because if they're not high performers, well, they have other problems. They have other problems to work out before they can be creative.
Yes.
So, but I tend to attract the people who are the companies, the teams that are very successful. So then I think, well, what's the common denominator? They are all looking for a competitive advantage. They're looking for what's in the offing, what is going to give them that edge, and then they pick me and my expertise in the arts.
That is job security right there. I adore it. Well, a lot of students will be watching this interview, and of course, I am part of the Texas A&M Aggie Network, which I find a massive blessing. So, to the students that are watching, would you have some advice, especially those who tend to go in panic mode or have that fear about assignments? Do you have any advice for them to not only enhance their creativity, but to maybe look at things from a multidisciplinary stance like you think? So any advice for these students?
Sure. So first of all, don't panic. Panic. If you've gotten to the panicky stage, you have been seized by your amygdala, the reptilian brain, that is the oldest part of your brain, which is concerned with fight, flight, or freeze. So that is not the place to come up with, you're not going to be able to access higher order of thinking or creativity from that space. So if you're in that mode, you need to do something to calm down and avoid getting into that mode in the first place. And so let's say you get this really challenging assignment and then you panic right off the bat. Then I would suggest do things like mindfulness, breathing. There's a technique where you can just close your eyes and rub your thumb and your fingers together and take a deep breath. Just breathe deeply and slowly and pay attention to the skin rubbing and to the ridges of your fingerprint and your thumbprint and the temperature of your skin on whether it's sticky or smooth. And you only need to do that for 10 seconds and just notice how you feel.
Connected.
Yes, you're connected. And that puts you in touch with higher orders of thinking.
Yeah, clear. I mean,
with your, you could call it your sage brain, your creative, innovative brain. So that's one thing you can do. Another is don't wait until the last minute to write your essay. As you have your assignments, let them percolate in your brain. So, and then look around for clues. See, I'll look for, let's say, a headline in a magazine, or maybe a billboard, or maybe somebody says something on television, or in a movie, or in an interview, or maybe I see a book cover, and it gives me an idea that, because I've got my radar out looking for clues to solve my problem. And when I have an idea, and sometimes I meditate on it first thing in the morning. So if I have an idea pops through, I write it down. So as thoughts occur to me about that essay, I write it down. So by the time I write the essay, I have a whole lot of stuff to work with. I'm not starting cold. So that's some of my advice.
that is incredible. It has been such a gift for me to have this time with you. I certainly have learned a tremendous amount of important information, not only about creativity and using that, but also about calm and being open when facilitating. I think, especially as we look ahead in assignments, your advice has been amazing. So, just before I end, where can we find more of your work, and how can we connect with you in the future?
Well, thanks, Erica. It's been fun chatting with you, and yeah, I hope what I have said will be helpful to your fellow students. And to reach me, you can go to my website at creativityatwork.com, which is all one word. And you can also link up with me on LinkedIn. If you do that, though, say who you are, because if you don't write a message, I might not accept the invitation. So write a note to say who you are and how you found me, so I know what the connection is. Yeah.
Well, I hope we all connect with you. You are a wealth of information, and I love what you're doing, not only as an artist, but as a business owner and student, using creativity in the workplace. We need more of this kind of work.
Yeah. The other thing is I have a free ebook that I'm offering. So if you go to my website, creativityatwork.com, go to the blog page, you'll see the link to sign up. And when you sign up, then you're subscribed to my newsletter, and my booklet gives all kinds of tips for creative problem solving.
I love that. Thank you so much, Linda. It's been a blessing, and I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Erica.
Have a
And
great day.